Do you want to let the others in, Dan?
Yep, and starting up the live stream now.
Yep. Great.
We should be good to go.
Thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone. It is Monday, May 23rd, and I call the Board of Finance meeting to order at 7:01. We can start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands
one
One nation,
under
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, I just need to pull my agenda over to a different screen so I can see everything at once. Here we go. Okay. So we can start with public comment, and I do see we have a couple of guests that have joined the meeting. So I don't know, we have Loretta, Christina, and Betsy. Anybody want to go first?
Eileen, do you want to mention that we're restricting it to?
So it is a special meeting, so we need to follow the agenda. So the topics that can be discussed in public comment tonight have to be relevant to the agenda, and there's a 3-minute time limit per speaker. And a regular meeting, we can have a little bit of a broader coverage on comment, but tonight, because it's a special meeting, we have to limit it. Betsy or Loretta, did either of you wish to speak? No? Okay. I see Christina has joined with audio now. I don't know if Christina wanted to speak. Okay.
Okay.
Hearing none, we'll move on to communications and correspondence.
I did not receive any.
Okay. Approval of minutes.
I make a motion to approve the April 13th, 2022 regular meeting minutes.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
And Mary's not on yet, so nobody to oppose. Okay, motion passes 4-0. Tara could not be with us tonight as she had prior engagements, and with the rescheduling of our meeting, she couldn't attend. I don't know if I didn't notice anything that was sent for us to discuss in the meantime. So I think we can move on to the report of the finance director. Marcia, we can't hear you if you're speaking yet.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
We can.
You should be able to see my screen. That the Board of Ed, I don't usually that's the first part. I don't see anyone here from them, but I believe that at their last meeting they were in pretty good shape as of now, that not expecting to need an additional appropriation. That with respect to the town, that in the 2021-22, the revenue report, you did receive the revenue report last week. That for revenue, we're expecting a surplus of 1.3 million. It's up from 0.9 million. The taxes make up the bulk of that. They're over budget, that which is a good thing for revenue. That earlier in the year, I had limited to say, well, let's say, we don't want to go too hog wild here, that let's say that we're going to limit it to 99% collection rate. When we tried to do that this month, we had already exceeded it, and we're not going to give money back. So so that's the bulk of what's different from the last estimate that we saw. We did take, and there'll be an accrual adjustment at June 30th. So you can, on some of the back pages, you can see how we calculated this. We did take that full accrual adjustment because we had some big collections last July and August. So I think that it's a very conservative estimate. The permits, they're building permits, they're under budget. There's no big projects. We had thought we might get some money for some, but with supply chain issues and other issues, they're just not, the big permits aren't coming in. The grants are over budget. We've collected more than what we had budgeted. That one is a FEMA grant for the storm, and that's about $220,000. And the other one's about $100,000 from education cost sharing. It worked out well last year that the state finishes their budget after we finish ours, and they gave us more money than what we had thought. We're going to talk about next year. It went the other way next year. The town clerk is over budget on revenues. It's primarily because of the conveyance fees that are still high. And then the fines, we have $80,000 of fines for blight, 7 Thompson Road and 857A Federal Road. We collected fines. Interest, we're projecting to be about $72,000 over budget. The Newtown savings follows the stiff rate, the state treasury rate. So we're getting 0.83% on that money. So we've transferred a lot of money over there. That adjusts weekly. I expect this week it's going to adjust to 0.89%. It's just doing really well. The Union savings was only giving us 0.25%, and we let them know about Newtown, and they have agreed to give us 0.5%, but we've got very little money in there. One of the things that we've got to do is develop a cash flow worksheet, so we kind of have an idea of how much cash we have coming in and out by month. So now that we've got it in 2 banks and we don't have all that bond money, we certainly don't want to find that we're out of money in the bank where we are writing the checks. For the expenditures, I just haven't had a chance to do the budget to actual, but there's no significant changes that I know of from last month. We will be requesting budget transfers next month. Public Works is going to need to move some. These are all of them that I've heard about so far. Public Works is going to need to move some around internally. Town clerk and is going to need to move some around internally. Town clerk, we're talking $200-300. Public Works, we may talk a few $1,000s. An external transfer for HR that for the labor attorney and the pension attorney that have seen a lot of fees there. That an external transfer that for a penalty for unemployment, and this is an odd issue, that unemployment sent a letter to the HR department a week in advance. Because of the Postal Service, we did not get that letter in a timely manner. And Lisa went online and did what she needed to do the day she got the letter, but it was the day after they wanted it. I don't know how they can expect it to all turn around that much. So they have applied for a waiver and a refund, but the unemployment is so swamped, they said they won't get that until 2023. And then another external transfer will be asking for, and that unemployment, the appeal, we won the appeal, and this was, the penalty was $10,000. The mulch and sand, we lost it with the storm Ida, and it should be covered by FEMA, but we have to pay for it up front. We don't have it in the budget. It's $20,000 to $30,000. So what we're going to ask to do is do a transfer, and then next year it'll be revenue when we get it approved from FEMA. Audit update. I'd like you to formally approve the auditor tonight. I think that's on the agenda. The planning they completed last week, that they were out here for a few days, but because of the COVID cases in town hall, they worked remotely for part of the week. I'm conferring with them on Arpa. I just want to make sure we follow the rules that, and one of them is that, you know, we go out to bid and things, and that fire truck they bought earlier this year, we didn't go out to bid for, they didn't go out to bid for, because they want all the fire trucks to be the same brand. And so we're just working with the auditors to make sure that we were following the rules. And I think what we can do is give the fire department the cash as a beneficiary and not as a purchase of the fire truck. So we're just making sure that that'll work. They're coming out for field work. I don't think we could have asked for a better date, September 12th and September 19th, those 2 weeks. 2022-23. So I've been trying to collect the information that I know about that budget. I sent emails out to the department heads that we lost some revenue that we thought we were going to get in the governor's budget. We were going to get a grant for $206,000 because of the mill rate we had last year. I asked the question, well, this year our mill rate will be lower. That was the wrong question. The question should have been, what are the politics behind this grant? They moved the mill rate up, so we're getting nothing on that. So we've lost 206 there. But on the other hand, interest is higher than we projected. We projected 96,000, and if we get 1% on an average of 18 million, we should be double that. So that'll offset it some. And I don't know where the interest rates are going. The health insurance we talked about before, 135,000 higher than budgeted for both the town and the Board of Ed combined. Fuel and gas are still an issue that everyone is expecting the rates to go back down. We had thought they were going to go back down, and then the war hit. So but now we don't want to lock in at the high rates, so we're going to pay month to month until until they go down. And talking with the supplier that there should be no issues in collecting and getting fuel. We are noticing surcharges are being added by the vendors. There's a transportation surcharge for salt that I forgot what they called the surcharge for the water, but we are noticing surcharges on more vendor bills. And then the concern about we've got a part-time health director now. I know Tara's looking into the health director or health district. It would be difficult to find a part-time health director that's qualified that wants to work part-time. So that's just an open item. If we stay with a local health department, what is going to happen there? The capital budget, Ralph says that he should be okay for the summer of 2022. We've got a contract in place. Overall, asphalt is up 9.5% without a contract. So he's watching the summer of 2023 before he thinks it's going to affect us, but we don't know if that's going to go back down, what's going to happen. The middle school wall, as you know, the bids were received for $1,031,000. The budget was $700,000. Paul Checo worked with them and worked out some revised specifications. So now the revised budget, the revised cost would be $795,521. The first selectman is reviewing different funding alternatives. Do we take it from another project? Do we have another project to take it from in the same year? Or do we take it from Arpa, or what else do we do? The high school locker room, it's estimated to be about $250,000 over the approved budget by Tecton. But we'll find out. It went out to bid last week, and the bids should come back in June. Any questions on any of that?
I have several.
Okay,
Firstly, on the surplus, can we maybe next meeting think of, are there ways to creatively utilize even the excess surplus to address some of the concerns of the 23 budget, such as the lost grant revenue? Can we apply some of it to a
Yes.
special fund or not, or something like that? Okay.
yes, and we talked about using 900,000 of that to offset. And so if the surplus comes in higher, we could
Right.
use more. So yes,
Right.
we will just extend that somewhat.
Okay. Okay. So we could use, that doesn't necessarily, we don't necessarily just have to use it. If we were going to use it for something else, we don't have to just use it for operating. We could potentially do we've done, a CNR type arrangement. So maybe we could handle the wall that way too.
Yes, and the way we would work on that is we have a transfer coming in from the premium that if we don't make that transfer in of 1.6 and so that's the thing, that so that it would stay in the capital non-recurring, or we don't make the transfer out to capital. So there's a number of things that we can do to tuck it aside.
All right. Do we have to do that next month, or can that be post 6:30? That we figure that out?
It could be post 6:30 if in prior years we had always made all the transfers after year end.
Yeah.
So the only one that I know of, accounting rules, that if we commit fund balance, we have to do it by June 30th. If we want to call it committed fund balance, and that's not something we're talking about here. So I think I don't see any reason why we can't.
Okay. All right. That's something we should probably add to the agenda next month. Either have a decision or at least talk about it. We'll be closer to knowing what the surplus actually is too.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I had one more. I guess. I don't know if you have the answer to this, but I didn't. How did the locker room go from being so far over to only 250,000 over?
They scaled it back.
That's a good reason.
So there is no weight room. I don't know the ins and outs of the detail, but it was scaled back substantially.
I'm curious for the wall. I mean, that number has been changing almost monthly, but how did it end up so much higher than? Do we know why it ended up so much higher than the budgeted 700, which we thought was going to be enough?
So the budget 500 to 700 was an estimate that Paul Checo gave us, and we thought it was 700. And I have to say that I am not really great at this construction stuff, but I do know that one of the problems was there's aluminum in the wall, and I forgot if we get the aluminum, if aluminum comes from Russia or the Ukraine, but it comes from one of those places.
Okay.
And then there was some what was going to be put on the wall. I think that was scaled back, the type of brick to a different type. Those are the things I was hearing.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Thank you, Marcia. Is there anything further?
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I think we can move up into the report of the committees. Dan?
Sure. So audit committee, Marcia mentioned engaging the auditor for next year. We got their engagement letter. Marcia and I had a series of email communications back and forth with each other, kind of going through it and looking at the changes. She pointed out where the changes were. We agree that it's a pretty standard audit letter. The fee for next year is right in line with what we talked about, a slight increase, but still quite manageable and no need to go out to bid for that. We were thinking about making it a multi-year engagement, unless that's changed, Marcia. This is going to be a 1 year with kind of a handshake on what the fees are going to be for the next couple of years. Is that still where we are?
Yes, I think we'd like to clarify the handshake into an email, but yes.
Right. Okay.
How
But
many?
for this,
I know that we've been happy with the auditing firm, and I just don't remember that every 5 years we're supposed to explore options. But what year are we on with this group?
This would
Yeah,
be
so
year
we were-
6.
yeah, we were supposed to go out to bid this year, and Marcia back in the fall did an analysis of what of firms that we might go out to, which were very, very few qualified firms where there were no conflicts.
Okay.
Did an analysis of other towns' fees for what, and not only what they're paying, but what they are getting. We do a lot of the work in-house now.
Okay.
And the recommendation at that point, which I agreed with, and I think we all did, was that if we can continue with their current audit firm, who has a ton of institutional knowledge and it adds a ton of value, and do it for somewhere in the range of a fee that we all agreed to is manageable, that it would be in our best interest to not go out to bid and do a direct engagement. So that's what we're doing here.
Okay.
And so I would, there were a couple other changes, but more legalese type stuff. Nothing major. It's a pretty standard letter. I'm comfortable with it. I would recommend and would make a motion to approve the auditor for next year and to sign the engagement letter that Marcia forwarded to me as chairman of the audit committee.
I'll second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Okay.
Great. Thank you, Marcia.
Okay.
They did say that we have a pretty sweet deal because they went up pretty substantially with their other towns.
Thank you for all your work that makes them want to continue to work with us at a good price. Okay, so then our next item is old business, the police department outside services drone request. Do we have? I don't think we have anybody from the police department, and we do not have Tara on the call.
Do you want me to just move that to June old business if we need all those people?
I mean, we had the clarification after the last discussion because we still had some outstanding questions that have been answered in email since. We had asked about the recurring fees and the cost of licensing, and that has been answered, and I think the costs are manageable. I don't know if there's other questions that anybody else had in regards to those. Okay. So
I read the additional, I saw that email, I was okay with it.
okay, I think my only problem is I don't think I have the letter in my hand to make the motion for what to approve for outside services. Hold on. I'm not sure I can pull it up quickly. Let's see. Outside service. Wait, I found it. Okay. So let me, okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the police department outside services fund request of $15,700 for the purchase of drones and other associated software and equipment to inaugurate the UAS program within the police department. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed? Thank you. Okay. Next, we move on to new business. I think this next piece should be pretty quick. So library folks, I hope, normally we make motions to move your agenda items up, but I don't think this will take long. So our next item of business is the approval and setting the mill rate and discussion on the budget that passed at referendum last Tuesday. So I think we can, I can make a motion to approve the mill rate. Seen it. Sorry, I had it. Okay. I would like to make a motion that we approve that the Board of Finance approves and sets the town of Brookfield 2022-2023 mill rate to 25.88. As is noted in the town of Brookfield budget summary. Anyone's?
Sure, I'll second.
Thank you.
Sorry, I couldn't get my mute thing.
I can see the look of looking on the screen.
I was hitting the button.
Okay. So yeah, any discussion that we'd like to have on the mill rate as related to the approved budget?
No, I have no discussion.
Yeah, I don't either.
I'm good.
Okay. Then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Okay. Thank you. Next item of business is hold on. Okay, the library grant timelines and milestones. I'd like to make a motion to invite Christina Cumberton and and Betsy, if you would like to speak on the grant timeline and milestones. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Eileen.
You're welcome.
I would just request that we invite Tracy and also the director
Oh,
of
I'm
the
sorry,
library.
Yeah, I'll revise the motion to invite Tracy as well, along with Christina and Betsy for the discussion of the library grant and timelines.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Eileen. Tracy's actually going to present the timeline.
Okay.
Tracy, you on? I can see she's on, but she's muted and her camera's off.
Okay.
Maybe she's trying to turn her camera on.
I am here, sorry.
Oh, good.
I was trying to share my screen and it locked everything up.
Oh.
But I'm not sure if oh, there we go. Okay. Let me pull it up so everyone can see. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So back in March, when I presented the library budget to the Board of Finance, Mr. Rooney had asked me to prepare this timeline based on the state construction grant for the building of a new library. And this is the timeline based on maximum dates for from the state construction grant. And this timeline was also prepared with the idea that we would have capital funding in this upcoming budget year for architectural plans, which are required to apply for the state construction grant. We did not get those funds, so the June 30th, 2023, for intent to apply, we would not be able to meet without having the funding to get architectural plans done. So the notice of intent is filed in June of each year. Applications are due by September 1st. And then in November of that same year, you'll see that State Library Board takes action. And we have 3 years to certify local matching funds through a referendum and submit the grant to the State Bond Commission and get a grant contract issued. And then there is 18 months after that to initiate construction. And then another 5 years after signing the initial grant contract is the deadline for project completion. So this was the most simple way I could put the timeline together with the most important dates going on. This isn't, what we would ideally want, but this is the maximums.
So how long is this grant available? So if it's not in this year's budget, the
Grants are funded every budget year at different amounts.
okay.
So for example, this year there's $3 million for library construction grants.
Okay.
So it all depends on the state budget on how much is going to be available and how many people apply each year.
Okay. And please remind me, I know that I've seen the number before, but I don't remember off the top of my head what the request was for the architectural drawings.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Betsy or Christina, but I believe it was 125,000.
Yes, that was the request.
Okay.
So we would need that within this budget year for you to apply by the June 30th, 2023, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
So since it didn't make it into the budget, is your plan to present to the Board of Selectmen? I mean, we don't, as you probably well know, we don't approve anything unless it goes through the Board of Selectmen first anyways. And I think this had also been a request for the ARPA funding, if I recall correctly.
I do not believe this had anything to do with the ARPA funding.
Okay. ARPA.
We were simply asked to provide this
Yes.
by Mr. Rooney.
Okay, I'm sorry he couldn't join us tonight. So,
Right now, we are currently in the process of doing the feasibility study. So we aren't at the point where we would be getting architectural drawings right now.
Yep.
As it stands.
And when is the outcome of the feasibility study expected?
I believe we're waiting for a contract from purchasing for the chosen vendor.
Okay.
And it wasn't included in ARPA because back then Steve was asking people not to include capital projects in ARPA.
Okay.
However, with this new rules and the final rules for ARPA, we could put it in ARPA.
Okay. Yeah, I think we need to have a further discussion with Tara involved on the ARPA committee, because I know that there are still funds that we have available, but I don't know what the plans are for that committee to continue and that type of thing. So I think maybe that's an agenda item for our next meeting. Yeah, I mean, hopefully Glenn can check the recording, but we'll definitely share this slide. And then, that's something I guess we discuss further once, if there's a proposal to the Board of Selectmen and it gets approved and goes to us. But thank you for presenting that.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have questions or comments?
Sorry, Eileen, I just want to clarify really quick. Are you saying that we could potentially apply for ARPA funds for the architectural drawings?
I don't know. I think the rules have changed for what ARPA funds can be used for, but I don't know. I honestly am not sure what the status of the ARPA committee is and how, what the process is going forward. We had the public hearing and town meeting where we approved a bunch of funding from the ARPA, a bunch of spending from the ARPA funds.
Okay, so who would be best to reach out? I'm sorry, Mary, I didn't hear you.
I was just gonna say, last I knew with the ARPA committee, once Colette presented to the Board of Selectmen, that phase of the ARPA committee was over, but certainly if, it needs to be reconstituted, it could be. So I don't know where we are with that. We haven't met, we haven't talked at all since presenting to Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, and that was during the capital projects and that type of discussion.
It would be eligible, Christina, to answer that question.
Okay, so who would I contact then, Marcia? Or
Tara.
can I have a conversation with you offline, or?
Yeah, I can tell you it's eligible. You just talk to Tara about what she wants to do and how she wants to move it forward.
Excellent, great. I'll reach out to her. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. So, okay, do we have, okay, so the next item on the agenda is the ARPA funds for the summer enrichment program. Brianna, do you happen to have that memo from?
I'm looking for it right now.
This was a request for a match, and then after this request was approved by the Board of Finance, the state used their ARPA funds for the match. So we no longer need to match this.
Okie dokie.
Awesome.
Great. Okay. And that item is complete. So that puts us on the outside service request for the police department record storage. Sorry. The trouble with online meetings is not having the physical papers printed in front of me. Just a minute.
Hold on, I think I'm trying to pull it up.
Okay.
Okay, so it's for the record storage.
Yep.
And so the request is, it just says, at a meeting on May 2nd, the Board of Selectmen voted unanimously to forward a request to the Board of Finance for an appropriation of $43,000 from the Police Department Outside Services Fund for the purpose of purchasing a record storage solution for the Police Department Records Division as outlined in a memo.
Okay.
And the memo was emailed to all of us.
Yep. Okay. So I think we need to, if you have the wording in front of you, would you mind making the motion to approve that?
Absolutely not a problem. There will be some background noise, fair warning. Sorry about that. It's quite a mouthy dog. All right, ready?
Yep.
I make a motion to approve $43,000 from the Police Department Outside Services Fund for the purpose of purchasing a record storage solution for the Police Department Records Division, as outlined in a memo dated April 6th from Chief Puglisi.
I'll second. Oh, Mary. Oh, Ryan. We'll give that one to Ryan. Okay. Any discussion?
Why isn't anybody from the police here to talk about it? Normally they come to support what they're asking for. I'm usually, if they ask for it, and it's their funds, I'm, more than happy generally, but this is a pretty big amount of money and I'm not first time hearing about it. So
I think in fairness to all, it was a part of the regular meeting, and then we canceled the regular meeting, then canceled the special meeting, and then pushed it to this day. So it kind of, I kind of get why people aren't.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. This is disjointed. I get it.
But also happy I can push it to June.
I think it'd be better to have the discussion
when they're here. Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, Robert's rules. We can.
So I need to rescind my motion.
Yeah.
Guess I could have said that before you made the motion. I wasn't sure if we could discuss it before the motion was made or.
Yeah.
The first time I make a motion, look what happens.
Sorry, I put that one on you.
I rescind my motion for the appropriation of $43,000 for the PD Outside Services Fund to be discussed at the next regular meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. And I don't think we have to vote on that, so there's no motion to vote on now. So we'll
At
move
this
that.
point, the June meeting is like in 2 weeks and 2 days, so.
Yeah.
Come around again pretty soon.
Yeah, I know. I literally am in like a sweat right now from all those motions. So much.
Okay. Okay, then our next item is the annual suspense list. And Marcia, if you don't mind explaining what it is that we need to do for the suspense list.
So every year, the tax collector and every tax collector in the town, sorry, I'm trying to keep my voice here, that every tax collector in every town prepares a suspense list. And it's essentially moving it from looking at it as collectible to probably uncollectible. It's similar to moving it to a bad debt. However, usually with bad debts, we stop the collection, and in businesses and things, we stop the collection process. We do not stop the collection process in taxes, that there's still liens on the properties. There's still activities, sending it to the marshal, sending it to collections to try and collect the money. It's the purpose of it is to show the report of the tax collector as what we think is more collectible. And each year, if I remember correctly, it's about $30,000 a year that we do collect in back taxes that have been written off to suspense. Any questions on that? She has a methodology of what she uses. It's usually done by the list year. Okay, we're going to take all the personal property that we haven't collected from this list year and move it out. Or then there's some specific identification as well, that this property is, they've closed the business, or the mail is coming back, things like that.
Okay.
So who after it's prepared, who reviews it? What's the process that it gets this far?
So she has sent a copy to me, although I don't review it. I did ask them questions, made sure none of your names were on it, that there are people that we knew, that there, the review process is that she sends it to collections, and then finance, when money is collected from the collection agency, we get a copy of what is collected, because the concern would be, oh, we've got $10,000. I don't need to reconcile it on my books because it's off on the bad debt list. And that would be the control to make sure that it shows up on our books when it's collected.
Sure. Do you happen to know order of magnitude, the amounts this year versus in the last couple of years? If you don't, that's fine. I'm just curious.
I could look that up. That let me just. So it's on the financial statements each year, and I thought I had her listing up. That all right, if you would pull up what she's asking for this year, I think it was about 150,000. If I'm, or 125,000. Last year, if I pull up the financial statements, get them on the website.
120,089 this year.
All right. So going to the financial statements from last year, We'll be able to see it on the report of the tax collector, which I have to guess might be page 100. Last year was 157,000. Let me find the year before. The year before, we didn't do it because, so 150,000 was 2 years worth. If I remember properly, that it wasn't done at the June meeting of 2020, it was done at the July meeting. So 157 was 2 years worth. 2019 was 108,000.
Okay, so this is on the order of being.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's all. That's good enough.
Okay, then I will make a motion that we approve the annual suspense list as was provided by the tax collector.
I second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
I,
None opposed, motion passes 5-0.
Eileen, before we go any further, Diane says we need a second on my rescind.
Yep.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ryan. The most painful motion of my life.
You just need to do more of them so you can get the practice.
Nope.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda are April budget transfers. Honestly, I think I'd like us to have that discussion when the full board is present. So I would like to make a motion to table that new business to the June meeting where we can all discuss.
I agree 100%. I second that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then the last, we can't do other items to come before the board because it's a special meeting and we can't have any other items that are not physically on the agenda. So that leaves us with public comment. So we have 2 members of the public, if anybody would like to speak.
Yeah, I would. Betsy McIlvain, 127 Long Meadow Hill. Just to congratulate you all on the successful conclusion of a budget cycle. It was kind of an odd one in many ways, but it takes a lot of work, and you're all to be congratulated for getting it done successfully and getting, at least from my point of view, a very good budget for the town for this coming year. So thank you.
Thank you, Betsy.
Thank you, Betsy.
Thank you, Betsy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, then I will make a motion to adjourn for the night.
I'll second.
I'm giving it to Mary.
Mary
Okay,
gets it.
all in favor?
Great.
Okay.
Have a great trip, Eileen.